Okay, welcome back, guys. We are now ready to open up yesterday's project and start working on loading our images. And we're going to add a few more doodads to our form to make your game make a little more sense and add a little more functionality. So what I'd like you to do is pull open yesterday's project, please. What we're going to do today is we're going to work on a couple of different things. We're going to load our images into the picture boxes on the program launch. And we're also going to add in a timer at the top to tell the player how long they've been playing the game. Most of those are pretty easy to do. What I'd like you to do is let's double click on your form here. And when you double click on the form, it brings up something called your form load event. So what I'm going to do is this will actually load 1.jpg in our first tile, which is great. That's exactly what we want. I'm just going to do something that most programmers hate. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it 5, 6, 7, 8 more times. So, and then I'm just going to edit the code because basically we're doing the same thing 9 times, one for each tile box. So I want you to move the cursor over here and rename this to tile 2 and rename this to image 2. Then I want you to move the cursor down here and make 3. Okay, so just double check, and since we copied and pasted, we want to make sure we didn't make any silly mistakes. Tile 1 should have image 1, tile 2 should have image 2, and so on. Work your way down, double checking each one of these as you go to make sure that the number here matches up with the number down there. And it looks like we haven't made any mistakes. So that's pretty good. So let's run our program to test it. Hit the little play button here, and up pops our program. It looks good. It's loaded all of our images in the proper spot. You know, it's got it got a little bit of a seam here, a border, which is what we've asked it to do. We've also got you know, everything lining up properly. If you get in closer, you can see that things aren't out of whack. So everything looks pretty good, and I think we're pretty much ready to go. I do need to mention one thing though. Notice how this tile is a different color. Something I should have mentioned on the Photoshop part of this unit. Remember, this one was originally just a big white box. All I did was open up that image 1 in Photoshop, and I just colored it in gray because this is the one. This is going to be our empty tile, right? This is the one that's going to show the tile itself that gets moved around, or the space where we can move the tiles into. So make sure you recolor that one in with the gray, and then everything else ready to go. We can't click on anything right now because we haven't got any click events in here, which we're going to do probably next day. So this is pretty much set. Let's close this off. We do want to go back to our form design, and we're going to add in our clock up here. So what I'd like you to do is just move my toolbox over a bit, and you want to look for your timer. It's normally in alphabetical order, but I've got mine sorted a little bit differently. My timer is way down here. There's my timer right there. I'm going to grab my timer and just drag it onto my form. Timer is kind of a special object. It doesn't show up on your actual project. There's no visual part to it. It just kind of works in behind the scenes. And it worked just like a stopwatch, really. So we're going to click on our timer object down here. And then over on the right-hand side, we're just going to call ours clock. And then we want to set its enabled property to true. What that means is as soon as the program launches, the clock's going to start ticking. And then we also want to set our interval to 1000. And what that means is every tick of our clock our clock will tick, or the code that's inside our timer tick event will happen every 1 second. So for every 1000 that you put in here means 1 full second of game time. So if you put a 2000 there, it would be 2 full seconds. You put a 5000, it would be 5 seconds. If you put a 500, it's going to be half a second. A 250 is a quarter second, and so on. So if we put 1000 in here, that means our clock is going to tick every 1 second, and then we want to put a label up here that's going to tell the player how many seconds they've been playing the game. So let's go back up to the top here and look for your label object, and we'll just drag that onto the screen. That's an ugly font, so we want to change that, and we want to make it a little bit bigger too. So let's pull that down and find an interesting looking font. I got a whole bunch here that you probably won't have, but that's okay. I'm going to use Helvetica. Sure, why not? Helvetica, bold, and I'll set it to 14. Alright, so that is now going to be my clock. So So let's click on the label itself. Move it up a little bit here so it's a little more centered. I'm going to click on the label itself, and then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to rename it. In this case, I'm going to enable it with an LBL for label, and I'm going to call it clock. And then my text property way down here is going to be, now let's call it time. That would make more sense. Time colon space. There we go. So what we're going to have here is this label is going to not only say the word time here, we're going to actually have this thing tick every 1 second. We're going to add 1 to a variable, and then we're going to just display the content of that variable here. So every time this ticks, that's going to say 1, it's going to tick again, it's going to say 2, it's going to tick again, it's going to say 3, and so on. All right, so let's get the code working in here. Let's switch over to our code view again. I've double-clicked on my clock in order to get back to my code view. And by double-clicking on the clock, you're pulling up something called the clock tick event. So what happens here is this is the code that's going to get run every 1 second, or whatever our interval was. In our case, it was 1. I'm just going to minimize our form load event because we don't need that anymore, at least not right now. What we do need to do is right here, I'd like you to move the code down by clicking enter a little bit. Right after the public class form1, we're going to declare a variable. Let's go dim. Let's go SHT for short, which is a type of number, and we'll call this time. Actually, we'll call it seconds. That would be better. As type short, and we're going to give it an initial value of 0. And then inside here, we're simply going to go SHT seconds plus equals 1. All right, so to give you an idea of what's going to happen, when the program launches, this variable here is just a container for a number, and it's going to start at a value of 0. So when the program first launches, SHT seconds will be 0. However, down here, this clock tick event will happen every single second, only once per second. So on the first second, this is going to run, then on the second it's going to run, on the third second it's going to run, and so on. And what tends to happen is, what's going to happen is we're going to add 1 to it. That's what this does. It says take its current value, whatever its current value is, and add 1 on top of it, and put the new value back in the same container. So you can think of this like a little box. The box starts off with a value of 0 in it, and then after the first tick, that value is going to get incremented to 1. After the second tick, it's going to get incremented to 2, and so on until we work our way through. The next thing we're going to do in our clock tick event is we're simply going to spit this value out into our timer. So we're going to start with the keyword me, which means our form, and our timer was called clock, and we're going to go dot. So what the heck am I talking about? Me dot label clock dot text is going to equal clock colon space, and then we're going to add to that SHT seconds dot to string. All right, so this gets incremented every second, or goes up by 1 every second. Then we're going to take it and we're going to spit it out in that label. I've got to convert it to a string first, of course. Spit it out in the label, and this is what happens when we run this. Again, our program launches up and then loads up all of our images, and you'll see our clock up top is ticking every 1 second. So every second this goes up by 1. So it gives the player a sense of time. Alright, that's it for this tutorial. Stay tuned. Next day we're going to start sliding our images back and forth.